I was never going to do anything in education. I took communications disorders, speech path, and audiology with a pre-med emphasis. Choices were to come back and marry my high school sweetheart, or go to med school, which I thought was going to take so much of my time that I would be forever getting married and starting a family and all of that. So I chose to come back home and marry my high school sweetheart. But I was raised by an educator. My grandparents raised me. And my grandfather was principal of Booker T. Washington High School in Suffolk during the time it was an all-black high school. And one of the things that I learned from him that I didn't appreciate till I became an adult was the difference that he made in lives for so many students. And I learned from my grandparents that the difference between success and opportunity for most success and failure for most folks is opportunity. In the early 80s, when I was an audiologist, there weren't that many audiology positions in the Hampton Roads area, so finding a job was a challenge. So I ended up taking a job working as a school speech-language pathologist. Loved it. And I remember my first principal said, "Hey, have you ever thought about administration?" I said, "Oh, no, I'm just here until I get a job in audiology." Well, this is my, 31st year? 32nd year. And so my passion is linked to what I saw with my grandparents. I used to see graduates of his high school come back to visit them and talk about the differences that they had made, my grandparents had made in their lives, whether it was through education, keeping them in school, buying books for their first semester when they went off to college and they were the first generation going to college, or making a dress for a debutante ball, or buying them a winter coat. And that's when I began to realize, and as I worked in education, wow, this really is about opportunity building. So that's where my passion came from. There are more ups than downs. I mean, when I walk in a grocery store here, or, when I was, back in Virginia, or when I walk in a grocery store or go places, and you begin to see the students that you worked with or children that you work with, and you see their parents. I remember when I was handling pupil personnel and discipline in Suffolk, I had to occasion to have some students who they're being disciplined, and I knew their parents. I had gone to school with their parents. I was like, "Oh, you're in trouble now. I know your mom. I know your daddy." That type of thing. And so, I'll tell you the one down, and it's not and it was exactly where God intended for me to be. I always wanted to be a high school principal like my grandfather, but in the early 80s, women weren't holding the positions of high school principals. And so because of that, I thought that I would never be a high school principal. I'm as close to a non-traditional educator as it comes. I've never been a traditional classroom teacher. I was a speech-language pathologist. Never been an assistant principal or a principal. I can't lose the war over a single battle. And so for me, it really becomes about building coalitions and dealing with that. If I respond in a negative way, if I've been approached in a negative way and I respond in a negative way, what's the takeaway from that? I have to lead. And so with leading, I have to pray, and I have to say, you know what, this isn't the hill I'm going to die on. And because of that, I go forward. I go forward. I mean, I don't know. People have often said, even my pastor here says, I don't know if I could face the adversities that you face. And I said, yes, you can. He said, and I'm a pastor. I said, but you know what? We learn about prayer, and prayer changes things. And I remember that the battle for me is for these 25,000 kids. And so if the superintendent is not going to fight for the kids, then who will? And so that's how I do it. I hope that they won't expect that I'm a silver bullet, but I hope that they'll see me as a link to a solution, as energy around a solution, a set of solutions. There's no one way to do it. If there was a silver bullet, we'd all be doing it in public ed, would be soaring. But I hope they will see my integrity, my belief in the teachers and the principals and the students and the community that I'll be serving. And that's what I hope they would see from me, that I'm a roll up my sleeves type person. I'm not going to micromanage the people. I'm not going to micromanage the other leaders in the district or whatever else. But we're going to talk about the expectations And then I say, I delegate, I don't give away, and I check in and say, okay, how do we know we're making progress? I also don't look for yes people, because yes people only promotes a single thought, a single direction of thought. And when I'm thinking about the work that we're doing, I need the opposing voices at the table, because when we finish vetting everything, we might find that right solution.